Hello and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. This is a special podcast that we're bringing you. We're not on the radio this week, the week of August 10th, and that's because WBAI is doing some fundraising. Speaking of which, if you go to give2wbai.org, it's give2wbai.org, and search Katie Halper, you'll see some great ways that you can donate to WBAI so that we stay on the station, so that the station stays around, and you'll get some great thank you gifts. And one of those thank you gifts is a Katie Halper Show Greatest Hits CD or file. And it includes interviews with Freddie DeBoer, Carl Bayer, Amberly Frost, Chapo, Trap House, Carl Diggler, and more. You can listen to the Katie Halper Show every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on WBAI. That's 99.5 FM or WBAI.org. And also follow us on SoundCloud and iTunes and subscribe. So this podcast special brings you two really great conversations that I had. One with Benjamin Dixon, the host of the Benjamin Dixon Show, while we were both in Philadelphia for the DNC. And another one is with Jimmy Dore, the host of the Jimmy Dore Show, very funny comedian, very smart guy, that we had after the DNC. And you're going to see that my opinion on Hillary Clinton and who to support and how to support that person and who to vote for changes a little bit. And we will see you next week live on the radio, and I'll be joined, of course, by Gabe Pacheco.
If you want to introduce me to your audience.
Oh, yeah, of course. Sorry. Yeah, of course. Duh. Okay. So, and this is Ben Dixon of the Benjamin Dixon Show. And on YouTube. And also on
internet radio, iTunes, anywhere you can get a podcast, et cetera, et cetera. So, basically, we're two broadcasters, and we're going to have a conversation.
Right. And Progressive Army.
ProgressiveArmy.com. Yeah. Thank you. I almost forgot my whole thing.
And what are you on Twitter, by the way? You're
the BPD Show.
The BPD Show. And I'm KT Halps, as in letter K, letter T, HALPS.
Yes, and so if you want to get some really good conversation as well as clapbacks, see either one of us, I think, definitely. Yeah. All right, so Katie, we are here. We are in Philly for the Democratic National Convention, et cetera, et cetera. Where do we start?
I don't know. That's a good question, right? Like literally and metaphorically, right? Well, I have a question for you. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Let's go for it.
What do you think what are your thoughts on what to do next and what is to be done and where we're going, and what are your thoughts on the November election?
So I actually don't have any thoughts on November's dead to me.
Really? Okay.
I'll be honest with you.
Explain.
I honestly don't want, I would do just about anything to keep Donald Trump from becoming president except for full out supporting Hillary Clinton. I can't really full out support her because I just disagree with her on so much. If she wins in a competition against Donald Trump, I won't be upset. I don't want it to be Trump, but I just have so many things that I disagree with Hillary Clinton on. I can't find myself supporting or endorsing her.
And where do you live?
I live in, so I can vote my conscience. I live in Massachusetts.
Right. Okay. Right.
So I am privileged, and I don't have to. I don't have to vote. I can vote for. I don't have to vote at all, for that matter. So and you're in New York.
New York. So I'm Bernie or bust in a safe state. Is how I like to say it. Yeah. But I would, in a swing state, begrudgingly vote for Hillary.
Yeah. Well,
what about you?
I don't know. It'll take too many. I feel like it would take a little bit of. And listen, I'm not one of those people who thinks Hillary Clinton is the devil. Mm-hmm. I do not think that she is the worst human being in the world. I do think that it's very difficult for me to support her, all things, particularly, let's forget about everything else that happened before the DNC leaks. Even just the DNC leaks is enough for me to say I can't support the Democratic Party. And so they have a reckoning to. They have a reckoning they have to deal with. If they want any support from progressives in the future, they're going to have to address this in a very significant way. Not this token apology from Donna Brazile. The only way to really address this is to clean house, top to bottom, and they're not going to do that.
Well, what did they do? So Debbie Wasserman Schultz stepped down, right? Mm-hmm. And then what did Hillary do? She named her honorary chair?
Honorary chair of some bullshit title, but doesn't really mean anything in terms of career.
Okay, right.
But it means everything in terms of you fully don't get it, Hillary Clinton.
I mean, literally, this is what I keep saying on Twitter. I, as a Bernie bro, have way better PR ideas and outreach ideas than the Hillary people who are basically Hillary enablers, Clinton. Mm-hmm. I like to call them Clinton enablers, right?
Yeah.
And I keep thinking this parallel. I mean, my point is it's not rocket science. You don't name the person who is associated with scandal and institutionalized bias, you don't give her a position, symbolic or not.
On the same exact day that she steps down
what are
for
you saying?
doing
What's
exactly
the
what we knew she was doing, right? It's to me, it's spitting in our faces.
I think so too. And here's the thing, this is the irony again, like, I actually really want Trump to be defeated. When I say that Hillary shouldn't do this and shouldn't be spitting in our faces, it's not a pride thing. I think she's alienating potential supporters. I think this is a horrible, horrible strategy. I just think it's a bad political organizing.
I mean, I do want Trump defeated, but I also, and I agree with you, it is horrible PR. It's being tone deaf.
Totally tone deaf.
But I think it's arrogance on her part. I think I don't think she gets this far without being smart enough to know that something like this is going to piss off an entire block of people. And so because of that, I feel like she's just, kind of on issue on the progressive movement.
But if it's arrogance...
I'm sorry, this is your own... This is
I'm going to beep it. Or let's, if possible.
Yeah, we'll bleep it.
So if it's arrogance, it's either hubris, that's like not actually going to help her, or it's knowing something we don't know, which is that her victory is more inevitable than we think. I keep thinking, though, about how much this reminds me of Israel, which sounds like weird, but I always say, or hawkishness in general, right? Okay. You have the USA patriots, right? Who are like, let's invade Iraq, America, love it or leave it, these colors don't bleed, right? And then they support policies that are actually pretty bad for people who are nationalists and don't care about the rest of the world. Like, put aside all the people killed in Iraq and all the stuff that's done there. It's just not good for U.S. safety, security, right? Our economy. Yeah. With Israel, too, the hawks. Israel is, Israel can never be wrong. Like, Israel, by definition, always does the right thing. These people are endangering the state of Israel. Yes. I don't care. Like, my thing as a secular lefty Jew is kind of like, I have to talk about this because I think it's atrocious and it's so not a good look. And also, I don't want AIPAC to be the voice of all Jews. Right. But, like, I care more about Palestinian human rights than I do, honestly, about the state of Israel existing. I'm kind of like a Chomsky. I could do 2-state or 1-state. But, again, it's like people like me and you, the ones who want Israel to not be as hawkish, we're so much, that's such a better policy for Israel. Like, if they listen to people like us, and this isn't a pride thing, everyone thinks it's ego, I don't care. If they listen to people like us, all the people who are more dovish than enabling and hawkish, Israel would have a much easier time existing.
Absolutely. It reminds me of my doctoral program and in international development. We have a focus on international relations, and we go between the differences between neoliberalism, not in the American economic sense, but in the global international relations sense, neoliberalism and realism. And people going into the program always came in with this perception that realism means that you have this sober view of the world and we're going to have conflict, and so ultimately we're going to do the most aggressive thing possible and we're going to blow stuff up. Right. And I had to really break this down to a lot of my colleagues that the more stuff we blow up, the more we undermine our power position in the international community. Therefore, we are doing something detrimental to us. Exactly what
even if you don't care, like, that's the irony. We care about human rights, right? There's certain things, like, we're not nationalists.
They can do it in a self-interest.
Exactly. That's what kills me. And the same thing with Hillary. It's like, I have better strategies for you, and I'm less invested in Hillary than you do. So it's self-destructive. It's like an unhealthy thing, and they enable each other.
Do you think it is that much just hubris on the part of Hillary Clinton?
I think it's hubris. It's not, honestly. Like, I was saying this the other day. Like, thank God for her supporters, because they make her, for her own sake, they make her look better. Because thank God for the DNC and some of her worst supporters, because watching the DNC platform committee was like, oh, she, like you said, she's not a devil. She is basically a symbol and product and byproduct of the DNC and everything that's wrong with the DNC. Yeah. There are two things that happened I thought were really symbolic of the problem. One is that there was a Clinton delegate Facebook Living some delegate meeting on Monday night.
So for those of you wondering what's happening, the DNC delegates opening party, all the Bernie delegates are pretty direct about their support for Bernie still.
And there are these people chanting Bernie and chanting various things, and implying that they don't support Hillary, right? And they try to get the roll call thing or whatever they're doing, which is it's going to basically a way to see if Bernie can get the
nomination out of.
Yeah, and he's doing that mostly, I think, because he does support Hillary. He wants Hillary in office, and he's doing that despite the. Do you know how vengeful I would have been if I were him? I'm sorry, after being crapped all over, but
no, absolutely.
So the ego stuff, they need to really shut up about that. But this guy on Facebook Live, a delegate, was saying, "Oh, these Bernie supporters are really insistent. They're not. This is supposed to be a night of unity." And mind you, this is after they drank all the liquor of Hillary Clinton and the DNC's liquor. And it's only when they ran out of the open bar that they started doing this.
Mind you, the truth is the Bernie delegates have spent all night drinking the party and Hillary's alcohol and eating our food. So now that they're nice and tipsy. Actually, this only happened when the open bar closed and everyone had to leave. That's when everyone decided to get angry. Coach, Terry says hi.
Literally, right after he says that, they're chanting, TPP no. TPP no.
Right.
Because whenever I get my buzz on, that's when I start talking about international trade policy, right? But that's such a great metaphor for how out of touch they are.
Right.
Now out of touch they are again. I don't care if you think we're a bunch of freeloaders.
Right.
And you think we're uncouth and uncivilized and self-indulgent privileged. Don't tell us that if you want our vote.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Okay. I got it. I have to keep reminding myself.
No, you can curse.
This is going to be on regular radio versus internet radio. Right. But you're damn right. That is so spot on. Like, do you even have enough self-awareness and enough, to borrow from George Bush, strategery to realize you cannot misunderestimate how personal we would take this. Right. And we're human. We have every right to take this personally. You cannot spit in my face and then say, but you're supposed to support me. No, it doesn't work like that.
And honestly, to me, and not to sound like holier than thou to you or to any listeners who are Bernie or bust, but for me, it's like, it drives me crazy, but then I'm like, wait a second. I'm someone who's going to who in a swing state would vote for Hillary. Like, you don't have to worry about me. I'm in a safe state.
I never really, because I hear you on Twitter, and
I know, it's funny.
You have a really solid critique of Hillary Clinton.
I do, but I really think that, let me just start. Let me finish up that thought, which is that I'm really, again, it's like, I'm trying to connect you out of touch Hillary people to the Bernie or bust people, because you would rather crap on them than get their votes.
Right.
You, honestly, this is another metaphor about this. I heard on Democracy Now! There was a Bernie delegate, I think, saying something about the TPP, and some Hillary person goes, "You're being a brat. Stop it. You're not working with us." No. What's bratty and shooting yourself in the foot and pride and hubris is telling someone who's complaining about a trade policy that is going to hurt the entire world, and it's like almost a self-parody of a trade policy. It's like literally making it impossible to access life-saving medicine, poisoning our food. I mean, beyond all the normal stuff, outsourcing jobs, race to the bottom, it's almost like a lefty's parody of what the trade agreements are. But that's bratty. You're the one who's being self-indulgent. You need these people's votes. Sorry, you do. Get used to it. I know you're in this entitled bubble of insulated hubris and privilege, but so again,
it's an obscene. It's very obscene to see them behaving in manners that they accuse us of, and a mannerism that is detrimental to their own policy for the people like me who, at the end of the day, the last person, there's actually two people that I would never want to see in the White House, and that is Ted Cruz. Thankfully, he's no longer up. And then Donald Trump. Of course, I don't want Donald Trump to be in the White House. I mean, for many, many reasons, on top of the white supremacy and nationalism that he courts on a regular basis, right? But to see them having, and I saw it in the actual convention last night. I actually got into an exchange of words with the guy who was insulting Bernie Sanders while he's speaking positively about Hillary Clinton. I'm like, you ungrateful prick. Yes. Shut up and accept the fact they are the sorest winners I have seen in my life. And to me, that shows a level of immaturity. It shows a level of disingenuousness. And also, I think it shows a level of just emptiness. And, and it's like, it's all a game to them.
What are you so invested in that you're ignoring your own self-interest? That's the thing. What are you so interested in that you are yourself so vested in? Yeah, exactly.
That you're going to ignore your own self-interest. So let's go back to the thing that catches me off guard. you
Well, because
would vote for Hillary.
I would, because as you said, you would hate seeing Trump in office. You would hate seeing Cruz in office, right? There are a couple of reasons I vote for her. I do think that, and I was saying this before, but I, as someone whose uncle is an award-winning, Lifetime Achievement Award winner from the Communist Party USA, and he has a very historical, grounded, critique. He's in the 70s. He used to be a SALT for the United Auto Workers. He was in the party. He left the party. He rejoined it. There's a difference between them. And I think that the real thing is that no one on the left that I know really is an accelerationist. No one really thinks it doesn't get better until it gets worse. And I think history does kind of bear that out, especially in the United States. Like, we can organize. The danger is, right, like what we saw with Obama and yes. Thomas Frank talks about this, that the opposition ceases to oppose. Or yes. He says also, he quotes someone who was a DNC insider, I can't remember who said sometimes it takes a Democrat to like slash funding for things, right?
Absolutely.
Bill Clinton got NAFTA through in a way that a Republican couldn't have, right?
Absolutely.
So there is definitely that's the strongest to me argument to not prioritize defeating Trump. But I do think that what we see, and this is a unique opportunity, is that you have Bernie Sanders, who showed the world that a more progressive, less corrupt, less elite-based, elite-indebted candidate could do really well. It wasn't just a Ralph Nader person, who I don't think actually has the kind of strategy or the outreach or, But he also showed us how closed off to progressives the DNC is. And I'm someone, again, who, raised by lefties, always knew the DNC was corrupt. I think somewhere in the back of my mind, as naive as this is, maybe wishful thinking, I always kind of thought that if a real progressive, an insurgent candidate, came out and was doing really well, that the DNC would embrace that person. Right. They're crapping all over this guy, who Absolutely. Is way more, in my opinion, electable vis-a-vis Trump. Yeah. Like, you want to tap into angry white male resentment that will never go to Hillary. Yeah. That's going to Trump, you put in Bernie, not Hillary. And so I think that will make us much more inclined to hold Hillary's feet to the fire, because I think we saw this other vision and this other possibility, and it's not as easy to then think this is, because with Obama, it really was like, well, we voted for the more progressive of the two options. We didn't vote for the more progressive of the two options. Right. We as in the right direction. Yeah. Right. So we didn't even have this alternative that we saw that could kind of remind us of what we could ask of Obama. With Hillary, I think we do have this thing with Bernie, opening up, expanding our kind of expectations.
I think you hit on something very important there. So think about where we've come from. Think about 8 years ago, we would do anything we could. And when I say we, I'm talking about progressives in general, mainstream progressives. Being called a socialist was a dirty word 8 years ago.
Totally, yeah.
Right? Anything and everything you could do to explain why we're not socialists. Even though we would go into a historical perspective trying to explain that America has a history with socialism. We went through all of those hurdles just so that we could soften the name of socialism. And then we ended up with a candidate like President Obama, who was more progressive than Hillary Clinton and did not... we could argue about how he actually administrated. We can go over those details, but he was more progressive at the time than Hillary Clinton. And now we progressively got someone else. I hate to use the same word twice, but we progressively got more. We got Bernie Sanders, who's by far more progressive than any of them. But we could not have had a Bernie Sanders 8 years ago. Right?
Totally
we,
true.
We could not have had this progressive movement. We didn't have it 8 years ago, and now we are in a position. I have to agree with you. Now, from that perspective, we can hold Hillary Clinton accountable in a way that, or we are going to hold her accountable in a way that no one was ever willing to do. Barack Obama.
Also, because the racism, I have to say, the racism against Barack Obama and the denial of it being racism took up a lot of energy. I feel like, not that I have my finger on the pulse of the progressive movement, but I feel like a lot of my friends and I who write or, do various social media about politics, a lot of us our time was kind of taken up defending him against these totally ridiculously racist attacks, dog whistles. And that was the most frustrating thing, is that, remember that guy Joe Wilson, who I got my picture taken with in Cleveland? Oh, yeah. Who said "you lie" in the middle of his speech? This is a symbolic thing, but it speaks to something bigger, which is like, that was so clearly racist. But if you're not someone who's sensitive to racism, you either will lie and say it's not racist and we're the ones always talking about racism, we're the racists, or you really don't get it. And so there was a lot of that kind of stuff to be done, the calling out racism when it wasn't overt, right?
And let me, if I could add to that, it's also a group of people who were on our side of the argument who were unable or incapable of defending him against racism, as well as critiquing him for the things he wasn't doing. They couldn't chew and walk chew gum and walk at the same time, and that became extremely problematic. And all the way up to right now with the TPP.
Totally.
The thing about the dissonance, the cognitive dissonance of the Democratic Party opposing the TPP while President Obama is the one championing it.
Did you see, and that's very true, and I think I remember being so inspired at one of the Netroots Nation things where Keith Ellison said, when we can walk with the president, we need to walk with the president. And when we can't, we need to walk ahead of him. It was such a great line. It was
That's
like,
good. That's
I thought
awesome.
it was like really moving. But what were we just saying? Sorry, we're both. I feel like we have like progressive lefty ADD.
Yeah,
like
we are. Yeah, exactly.
We're
hitting all of it, all the engine. But we're actually talking about like what's next.
Oh, what's next, right? And
how you can vote for Hillary.
Yeah,
like you have some of the best critiques
I think
of her.
that's why when my friends or former friends crap on me and tell me that I'm doing, I guess you just want Trump to be elected. I'm like, you're shills for Hillary. You have no cred. You should be so happy that someone like me, and I'm not patting myself on the back. This applies to anyone who shares our politics. Like anyone who has serious critiques and is willing to say we have to defeat Trump, like we're the ones helping.
Right.
This is, again, going back to the self-interest stuff. When I was in Cleveland, I was like, I've never liked Hillary Clinton more than I do right now. Seeing these pins that say like Hillary Clinton KFC special, 2 small breasts, 2 big thighs, left wing. I'm like, wow. So this and this is what really made me love. When I didn't love Obama that much. I hated his Purple America stuff. It was so bipartisan. I get why. I totally get the like. I think there's a lot of racial politics behind that, and I think that like any single thing he did was seen as 1,000 times more radical. Yeah. And so I think he had to come to the center, and that's another issue. But what really made me fall for him was when the Jeremiah Wright attacks, and that I was just like, you know what? First of all, all these people who were Obama fans before and are now super Hillary fans and hate Bernie Sanders and call him racist or sexist, misogynist. I'm like, do you remember the race baiting and the Muslim baiting that the Clintons did? What happened?
They very few people are willing to admit that they even supported Hillary Clinton above before they supported Barack Obama.
Right.
Today was the first day I heard a representative from Florida. I forgot her name, but she's an older black woman, and she said today that she's proud that she was she came as a delegate for Hillary Clinton in 2008.
Right.
And I'm like, this is one of the very few people who are honest and keeping it real to say that they sided with Hillary Clinton in 2008. But now they all act like they've always been in love with Barack Obama.
Then you have, I feel like, a lot of black politicians, especially, who switched to Obama in large part because of Bill Clinton's quotes about playing the race card. Well, first he said the stuff about Jesse Jackson, which the irony is I don't even know if Bill Clinton is smart, so when he's a genius, so whenever it sounds like he's dog whistling, he is.
Yeah.
Just like when he talked in this election about the awful legacy of the past 8 years.
Yeah,
that was about Obama. Come on,
what the hell he was saying.
So when he compared Jesse Jackson to Obama, that pissed people off. What does he do? Again, this is the exact thing we're talking about: the lack of like self-interest, control. Like when he got on the plane with Loretta Lynch.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God!
Yes.
Like, what are you doing? Yes. I should run your I want to offer webinar like how to be a better shill for Hillary or whatever, but.
Exactly.
Right? Like, I could really run. You and I could run. We should offer services. We should, hey, Hillary people, pay us. We'll get you the best campaign.
Right, because you're not even doing shilling right. You're not.
Yeah, exactly. Be a better shill.
But that makes me believe that they're not interested in just winning. I think, to a certain extent, they're interested in crushing the progressive movement, because that's the only way to explain the post-primary behavior of all of the surrogates.
After he's already endorsed. What do you want from him?
Exactly. What do you want from his supporters?
But the beauty of it is, I have to say, and this is why I have to remind myself that I want to defeat Trump, as opposed to letting things go crazy, is that like they have to deal with this now because they continue. Own it. Like, how many times, if they had listened to progressives, and again, this is not a pride thing, but it's like, The Democratic...
It was for me.
Yeah. I mean, there's some of it, but honestly, I step back and I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of like emotional stuff, but I honestly think that, and I'm trying to be disciplined because my emotions want to like just watch the DNC blow up. That is my emotional truth, but I know intellectually and that my sense of justice does tell me we have to defeat Trump and that we'll be able to gain more things under Hillary. But we can't enable her the way that we did with Obama, right?
No, not a single day.
And so it's like you want to crush progressives and you want to crush the left so hard that you're actually jeopardizing your campaign and your victory. Because, again, like, how do you say that you don't care about courting these people's votes? You're the brats. You're the petulant brats. You're the egomaniacs that you accuse Bernie Sanders of being.
Yeah, and all of his supporters. That is exactly how they have been behaving.
When will they stop?
Because I honestly think they want to crush the progressive movement.
Right.
Otherwise,
they're creating a monster, though. I mean, they think it's a monster. I like them, but
they want to crush the progressive movement, or they're dumb as bleep. You put a bleep there.
Right.
They're because
dumb AF.
Yeah, dumb AF. Because you cannot genuinely expect the way that you have treated progressives post primary to be inviting and to court their vote. Exactly.
And you make a really important distinction because it was on one level where I was like, you guys need to stop during the primaries, right? Mm-hmm. Then the guy comes out, endorses her.
Takes it on the chin from his own supporters.
Yeah, takes it totally. And you're still calling him out about this stuff? Like, and then this is my favorite thing. Cornel West. I had a big thing with Eric Bowler about this. Super hella woke guy from Media Matters, whatever. He tweeted days after Bernie had endorsed her. Cornel West endorsed Jill Stein. Mm-hmm. Eric Bowler was like, "Wow, so glad Bernie Sanders named this guy to the Democratic Platform Committee." I'm like, "Wait, do you want to bring this up again?" So out of touch. I'm like, "You realize that you guys fought tooth and nail against every single good thing that Sanders appointees did."
Yeah.
And you really want to bring that up? That's fine, because we'll dominate
we can
that.
Talk about
yeah,
this.
we can talk about that. And you
conversation.
look like the sellouts who made this party to the right of Donald Trump on TPP.
Yeah.
Like, please bring it. Like, let's talk about this. The minimum wage stuff. Did you see? This is priceless. Benjamin Jealous. This was like just a comedic break because it's so tragic, but when he was trying to get his amendment through, that would have really strongly opposed the TPP. And this, to me, was such an example of Ben Jealous literally imploring the Democrats, saying, we need to empower the Democrats to oppose TPP so we win in November. He was already using the female pronouns. He was not at all holding out. He was totally talking about Hillary Clinton being the next president. And he couldn't convince these Democrats to oppose it.
But I want to leave it with a question, and then you can get the last word.
I still feel like we have to decide why we disagree on the Trump thing, because I feel like we basically agree, but then
we agree. But I just can't put. I will hold out forever. I can't. Right. I can't.
But what do you say when people say, and you will get this less than I get this, the privilege thing?
That I'm privileged? Yeah. No, I'll say yes, I am. I'm privileged enough to live in a swing state where I can vote my conscience, and I don't have to vote.
A safe state.
A safe state,
right.
Yeah. I don't have to vote. I'm sorry, thank you. A safe state. I don't have to vote for Hillary Clinton. I can't. I don't think I don't think I possibly could.
But if you were in a swing state, because I think this is really the interesting question.
If I was in a swing state, I would move to a red state, so I wouldn't have to. I can't bring myself to. Listen, it's a.
But you and I seem to agree that we'll be able to, again, if we look at the Obama example, right? Mm-hmm. First of all, they really wasted their socialism smear on him. I would always say, like, if only he were. Don't get my hopes up, right?
Thank you.
But he helped popularize that term, right? And then so when Bernie got in, who actually is a socialist on some levels, or a Democratic socialist, right? It kind of lost its stigma, right? So you showed, we agreed on this, that like we are in a place where Bernie could be a viable candidate in a way that we weren't.
Yeah, 8 years ago,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that I think makes the case that like again, maybe Clinton isn't that progressive, but I still think we can get more done under Clinton than we can under Trump. Okay.
So here's the last question I'm going to leave off for Hillary Clinton supporters. Yeah. Who may listen to this. My question is, because we seem to be going over this a couple of times in this conversation, which is it? Why are you such sore winners? Right. Why are you alienating the handful of supporters you can get to come? You're sabotaging your own victory.
Right. Do you think they think that the numbers don't matter? Like, this is another question I have. Do they really think that they're... And I don't know the answer to this. It's like either the Bernie or bust people are so small that they shouldn't be wasting their time talking smack about them, or they're big enough to worry them, in which case they need to be courting them. I don't know.
I think the numbers are growing with the DNC leaks at a minimum. The question that I want to ask them is it hubris or is it ignorance?
Right.
Because either way it goes, you're undermining your own best interests.
Right. I think it may be emotional too. Like they're so invested in something, and they can't
you're so nice,
see reason.
But that's possible. That's very possible.
But But
you have to. It's. I think that's the answer.
Yeah.
I think for some of them, they're just so emotionally attached to Hillary Clinton that they can't find any way of critiquing a single thing that she does.
Right. It's the enabling thing. It's the bunker mentality that they don't even realize they shouldn't have because Bernie's the one who was attacked.
Yeah.
People don't realize you can be right wing and sexist against Hillary. That's true. That happened. But people hate Sanders more.
Yeah.
It's not that hard or deep.
It's not. All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. That was Benjamin Dixon, host of the Benjamin Dixon Show. And now is a part of my interview, actually an interview that Jimmy Dore did of me for his show, The Jimmy Dore Show, which you have to check out on YouTube. And soon I'm going to drop the interview I did of Jimmy. And that'll be yet another podcast you can look forward to hearing.
Hi, I'm here with Katie Halper. She's my favorite new lefty journalist, and she has a great piece. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Jimmy.
All right, and she's all the way in New York. I'm all the way in Los Angeles. I don't know how this works. Something to do with E equals MC squared and satellite position. I don't know how it works, but here's your article. I'm going to show people that you did a nice article in Paste Magazine. There it is. It says, Hillary's mean media is alive and well. Degradation is a strange-looking olive branch. Now, I've noticed, along with you, Katie, that the Clinton faction doesn't really know how to reach out to liberals or the left or anybody on the left to get a vote. They know how to reach out to the right. But you wrote this about not only that, but they can't help but punch. It's an old saying is that punch a hippie. Meaning like how the Republicans fear their base, but the Democrats have disdain for their base, and they mock them, meaning that punch a hippie, make fun of somebody on the left. And you feel like even after Hillary Clinton won the nomination, instead of acting like good winners, people in the media did what?
Yeah, I was really surprised. I mean, I like you, Jimmy, and you're what did you call me? Lefty journalist. So you're one of my favorite lefty comedians and truth tellers. But the show that I have on WBAI, which is the Katie Halper show, it kind of turned into, unintentionally, a radio show that was all about media bias. And that kind of wasn't my intention, but I had no other choice because I do think that this election has been as much about the media as it has been about actual politics in a way that I kind of always knew intellectually, but I think it's so much clearer now, and I'm aware of it on a really visceral level and in a way that I wasn't before. So I was kind of shocked by how mean-spirited the media was towards Bernie Sanders throughout the whole campaign. I mean, every smear was about his being grumpy, his being mean, his being misogynist, his being racist, his being sexist, his being not being gracious. Then he endorses her, and these guys still are writing about him and saying he's mean, he's not nice. He's like, what do you want from him? First of all, I think half of the people who write about him have a crush on him because I don't know why they keep writing about him. He had already endorsed her. He had already, stepped out of the race. And then he wrote another op-ed, right? So he endorsed her, then he spoke for her at the convention, then he wrote an op-ed. And people were like, yeah, I liked it, but, it didn't feel emotional enough for me. I was like, yeah, something about it felt like it was written almost by like by a 70-something-year-old Jewish socialist from Brooklyn, Where was that Maya Angelou voice that I really wanted? Like, what are they expecting? This is Bernie Sanders. This is who he is. Like a Hallmark card? I don't think that would have moved his base either, by the way.
So you had some pretty specific examples, not only of... So, I mean, we've made the point on this show before that the media, it was the left-wing media that kind of kneecapped Bernie Sanders. We all expected regular mainstream media and right-wing media, of course, to try to marginalize him. But I didn't expect the left-wing to do that. And Mort Saul, in fact, said to one of the writers for the show last year that it will be the left wing that kneecaps Bernie Sanders. It won't be the right wing or the mainstream media, and that's certainly what happened. You saw all the BS. Well, now that we know through the DNC leaks, all the BS that was concocted, right? And so then the left-wing media just repeated that stuff. And when I say left-wing media, I mean MSNBC. So it was just...
I hope the liberal media. I don't even think they're left-wing, honestly. I mean, I get that they're to the left and not to the right, but they're so...
There's fair establishment.
Their establishment, yeah. They are I really think they're just neoliberal. That's what it is. I think more and more it's becoming clear that lots of the places that we call the left or even liberal are neoliberal, right? They're not even progressive. They're kind of status quo liberals. They're like, they support the establishment, the media, the corporate media, and the political establishment. The difference is that they have and are gay, of color, women, and that's great. You know, I don't like to hang out with all white men who are straight either, you know. That doesn't make you progressive, though, or woke, as people say. I mean, it does in the way we use it, which is ironically, right? But, you know, it doesn't make you... I'm glad that people have a diverse group of friends. I'd like it if they didn't also support bombing a diverse group of people.
Wow, that's a great... that's really well put. I might have to put that in my act. But
I'll share it with you. Yeah.
Okay. So it was very disheartening for me to see that as soon as a real liberal showed up, a real progressive, Bernie Sanders, who didn't take corporate money and was on the right side of every issue for the last 30 years, it was interesting to see as soon as that guy showed up, again, the left-wing media. And let's just be said, when I say left-wing media, I get exactly what you say, the supposed left-wing media, MSNBC. If you do anything that's truly lefty, they fire you, right? So if Rachel Maddow, if right now Rachel Maddow came out and had Phil Donahue on her show, they'd fire her. If she talked a little bit too loudly against the TPP on her show, which is what Ed Schultz did, they would fire her. Right. So the fact that those people are still working there and they aren't fired and they work for Comcast, which is a big pusher of the TPP, we know this. They are backing it so much that they fired Ed Schultz. They don't want him They don't need to hear that anymore. Right. So that's the difference between left wing and right wing media. Right. So they would never fire a right wing guy. They only fire a left wing guy for being too lefty. They'll never fire a right wing guy for being too righty. Right. And so.
Right, saying about fearing your base, right? Like the left is in so many ways it's afraid of its own shadow in a way that the right isn't at all.
Yes, no doubt about it. So that's what. So when people say, "Oh, it's MSNBC, they're left, and Fox News is right," Fox News isn't news. It's not news. It's propaganda. It's been scientifically proven. The more you watch Fox News, the less informed you are. So that's not a news station. They're doing something else. But people keep calling it news. It's not. And so they go, oh, the Fox is right wing and MSNBC is left wing. No, MSNBC is not left wing. They're giving you everything that they're saying on that is corporate approved. It's being approved by the one of the biggest corporations in the world, right? So it's not left. And the fact that they can pretend they are, it's not. It's not. And I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm saying they're just not left. So let's get back to your article, Katie. Sure. You had some specific examples. For instance, you referenced Slate magazine, and so there was a specific piece by Jeremy Stahl, who's an editor for Slate. Am I wrong about that?
No, yeah, he's the political editor, and I couldn't believe it.
So I'm showing that picture. I'm showing the picture on the cover of his article. It says horrified Bernie Sanders supporters during his convention speech. And there's a picture of a guy sitting all alone with his hand like on his face, and he's got a sad look on his face. Right. And the caption is, "Just please take me home now. I want to go home." So this is after Bernie had already endorsed her. Why would you do that? That's my question to you, Katie. Why would someone who you won, your candidate won, the true progressive... By the way, it's just weird to see people who consider themselves liberals or lefties shitting on an actual liberal. Like, that's the new blood sport for people who consider themselves lefty, is to shit on someone a little farther left than them. That's the weirdest thing I've never seen. That's just weird to do that.
It's funny.
Good.
Yeah, no, people are really becoming exposed. Like, this election has exposed a lot of people, right? So,
like Jeremy Stahl?
Like Jeremy Stahl, right? And one sign, this is kind of a new level. This is a new level of kind of rudeness and and kind of embarrassingly mean-spirited behavior. But before that, we had another interesting kind of reveal, which was when the Democratic Platform Committee meetings were happening, and you had so-called progressives actually trying to shame Bernie Sanders for staying in the race and not dropping out, as he was demonstrably and indisputably moving the platform to the left, making it more progressive, right? So not only is it weird, I'm no longer surprised that progressives who call themselves progressives don't actually want a progressive platform or don't actually want a progressive movement. I'm surprised that they don't have the kind of awareness to realize that they shouldn't say that out loud.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like level of obliviousness. I think it comes from being really entitled and insulated, and I think that's similar to what we see here, which, again, I expect these people to be mean-spirited. They already were mean-spirited. I guess they could pretend that they were doing it before to kind of get people into line. I think it would backfire anyway. But then the guy endorses Hillary Clinton very enthusiastically, and now you're just actually sadistic. You're like, you're a bully. You're a mean bully. You're a schoolyard bully.
Yeah, you're just shitting on people who have a different political opinion than yours, actually a more liberal position than yours, and they're sad that their candidate didn't win. Their candidate endorsed your candidate, and you still feel a need to take a dump on them. By the way, their candidate doesn't take any corporate money, never voted for a war. It's like so.
Well, I think that's why I think a reason that they shit on them with so much gusto, if you will, is because they are resentful of us, of people who support Sanders, because I think that they feel like we're kind of calling them out.
We are.
Even if we say anything about them, just the fact that they can't pretend that this guy's a total lunatic, because there are people who are coherent people and have sane ideas that have decided that Sanders was the way better candidate. So get way more progressive, but also I think more electable.
Way more.
He had a way easier time with the general than he did with the primary, Sanders. But I think that people are shitting on supporters because they don't want them to kind of expose them for being the centrist neoliberals that they are. And what's weird is that a lot of the other articles I cite in my piece were really mean towards people who hadn't already become Hillary supporters, people who were saying that they were Bernie bust, maybe Stein supporters, or just kind of like on the fence. But what's weird about this is Stahl didn't even wait for these people to declare where they were politically. These were literally photos of people reacting to his speech. I'm going to
show some of those photos. Let me show some of those. So there's the first photo of this guy being just he's at the DNC, he's at the convention, he's sitting there and he's reacting to Bernie's speech. And wow, it's sad. Wow, wouldn't it be beautiful if we could embrace these kind of ideals? So here's some of the pictures that. So you made then in this article for Slate, they start putting pictures of people who are having emotional reactions to Bernie's speech, and they show a lot of the same people. You said 9 pictures, and he used a lot of the same pictures twice. This is the same. I'm showing a picture of the same woman crying. So he's got 2 pictures of the same woman here. He has multiple pictures of. Go ahead.
The same woman. He has 2 of the same guy. So first of all, this guy is so lazy he can't even curate other people's pictures. Like, he finds 3 people to cover. He may, again, with the crush, maybe he has a crush on 2 of these people, and that's why he keeps repeating their photos. But what's interesting is there have been so many slideshows of this, right? Not all of them were this mean-spirited, but there were countless photos. And you know what I noticed while I was watching? I was like, oh, this guy clearly went out of his way to not include any of the people of color who were upset. Because white people aren't the only people who supported Sanders, as much as the media wanted us to think that. And nor are white people the only people to show emotion in their faces. So it's not like this guy captured a representative sample. He went out of his way to give a skewed view of a Bernie Sanders supporters, and then for no reason just to be mean to them and to ridicule them. Why would you ridicule people who are supporting the progressive candidate who just endorsed your candidate? That's called being a shitty winner. You're a shitty fucking winner, which means you're not a good person, which means you don't have real integrity, nor do you know how you come off to other people. You're everything that is wrong with what you have all the traits that don't go well with being a good reporter. Right. And it's also, to me, not to sound corny, but politics really are about people. Right? The only reason I care about politics is because I care about people. And, I want as less people suffering as possible. And there's a lack of empathy. This guy is showing a lack of empathy. I feel like he could be a sociopath or something, or a psychopath. This would be a good
Jeremy Stahl, the guy who did this story. That's what you're talking about on Slate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What
Jeremy Stahl,
what else is motivating you to now
people's politics, right? This is what makes you. I really do think that someone like Bernie Sanders and the people who support him, for the most part, are more empathetic towards the suffering of others. And that's what I want in politicians. That's what I want in friends in general. Like, that's what makes people good people. And this kind of weird disconnect where, again, what's weird about this article in particular, as opposed to the other ones really shit on Bernie or busters, which I think is a problem in itself. But this is particularly kind of bad strategy, because for all this guy knows, all the people in this article, for all he knows, could be people who had found jobs working at the Hillary Clinton campaign for the next day, for all he knows. You know what I mean? These weren't people who were saying, I'm not getting on board with her. These were people who, God forbid, they were literally reacting in real time to the person who they were supporting, announcing and officially stepping down. What's embarrassing about that? Like, I think another thing is he's embarrassed because no one would have cried over that happening with Hillary Clinton.
I think you are correct. I think you really put your finger on something there, Katie. It's like, people have emotional reactions. Like, people had emotional reactions to Robert Kennedy, and people had emotional reactions. So it's that kind of a thing that scares them. Like, nobody's going to have that reaction to Hillary Clinton, so we have to now shit on that reaction and denigrate it and make it seem silly or childish and not really a mature reaction to things. Because if you look the captions he was putting in when that one woman was crying, his caption was, hey, look, nobody died.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Hey, Jeremy Stahl, Mr. Stahl, Jeremy.
What a weirdo.
I don't like politics, but I could always use some more money. You should hire me to write your mean-spirited funny stuff, because I'm 1,000 times funnier than you. No, don't hire me. Hire a 5-year-old and he'll be funnier than you. Can we just look at some of these captions? They're so not funny. Okay, one of them goes, just please take me home now. I want to go home. Another one, poor souls. Another one, nobody died. And then this one's real great. It's with brackets, insert Celine Dion lyrics here.
Yes.
So not only is he mean-spirited, but he's not even like one of these people who's funny and you feel bad when you're laughing. He's just not funny at all.
Right.
Which goes back to another theory I have, is that comedians are more, funny comedians are more empathetic than, that's why a lot of people on the left are funnier than on the right. Yeah, again, it's just weird. It's, punching, speaking about this term punching left, right? So there's punching up and punching down in comedy. Punching up is what George Carlin does, what you do, right? Which is when you ridicule the people above
with power,
the people down, right? That makes for better comedy. It makes for way more ethical, interesting comedy, but it's just funnier. And what we see now a lot is these liberals distinguishing themselves from the true left or the true progressives, whatever you want to call it. And they're really trying to, you just put your finger on it, which is that this whole narrative about the savior complex, right? They were trying to marginalize Sanders supporters and trying to make us look like lunatics or fringe, because they knew that his support was really, there was a lot of enthusiasm, right? And there was an enthusiasm gap between him and Hillary. And so the way that they tried to deal with that was by making us look crazy.
Yes.
Instead of acknowledging the fact that this guy is someone who's really speaking to people. And what's most dangerous about him is that he was speaking to people from various political walks of life. This wasn't just about political party, political identification or affiliation. This was someone who was tapping into something that everyone was feeling and was able to reach people who otherwise wouldn't have cared about politics, which is exactly why the Democrats should have embraced him, the Democratic Party. But yeah, this was just mean-spirited. And again, I hope people aren't buying this idea that it's all white people. That's one of the most ironically racist things that has happened during this campaign, is the total invisibilization and marginalization of people of color who support Sanders, who are there, who the media actively chooses to ignore.
Yeah, I mean, Katie, for instance, the person that Bernie wanted to have introduce him at the convention was Nina Turner, a black state senator from Ohio. So, right. So we don't get to see. So again, it's just rich white people. That's that whole thing. And it's white privilege to not vote for Hillary Clinton. It's white privilege. Right. So if you're not supporting the corporatist warmonger, it's because you're white and privileged. Wait a minute. All the white privileged people I know are supporting Hillary Clinton. What are you fucking talking about? The people I met on the streets of Philadelphia are much like the people you met, were poor people. People who have modest means, or they were either that, and they were Asian, they were Mexican, they were black. I talked to Tim Black. I talked to Core Element. Those are just two guys on stage with me at a protest in Philly. So this idea that somehow it's white privilege, no, it's people. If you have money, you want to vote for Hillary Clinton. It's the people who actually are struggling, who feel the effects of neoliberalism, who are rejecting Hillary Clinton. So it's of course, it's the exact opposite of what the establishment and the pretend left-wing media is pushing right now, that it's somehow your white privilege. It's only Bernie, bro, as if there aren't women supporting Bernie Sanders. Just the craziest thing. And of course, they get away with it because they have a bigger megaphone. Go ahead. What's that?
No, the women who support Sanders, that's because we want to be where the boys are, right? That's the narrative. So,
yes.
Or look at what Boxer said. Young people like him because he reminds them of his grandfather. Can you imagine if someone had said that about Hillary Clinton?
Or Barbara Boxer?
Well, yeah, I know. I was like, okay, Babs, thanks. You know, it's incredible the difference that hair dye makes.
I actually was walking down the hall at the DNC. She was next. She was almost shoulder to shoulder with me. And
I'm shoulder to hip. Let's be honest. How tall are you?
Yeah.
How tall is she? I'm not being shortest. It's just a cute image to imagine.
Yeah, I'm not
All
the
right.
tallest guy in the world either. So I have sympathy for height challenged people.
You're not height challenged.
I'm 5'8".
She was like 10.
I'm 5'8". I'm on my tiptoes. So anyway,
Remember that?
when she flipped, she said she was afraid for her life, and then of course pictures came out. She's flipping the people off as she gets off stage. Yeah, Barbara Boxer, of course. So of course, they're all full of shit. So when a real liberal comes along, they just shit all over them, and that's why you can't. It was, and so this is a perfect. I want to tell everybody to go read your article because I don't feel like we're doing it justice here. It is so good. In fact, Glenn Greenwald even noticed your article, and he had some interesting things to say about it. Let me just let me see if I. Oh yeah, here it is.
This was I had to cut myself off at this number of examples because there's so many. This was just like a sampling. I could do this every day. I could blog every day until November. Just maybe I should do that.
So let me show what Glenn had to say about it. So. You say, here's your tweet. You say, the left, we're not treated like second-class citizens by any means, but seen as feral, strident, socially inept ideologues regardless, which is a perfect yes. And Glenn Greenwald, who read your article, responded to you, said, it's because there has been no viable, threatening left-wing alternative to Democrats for a long time until this year. Yeah, before it was Ralph Nader. That was it. Right. That's all we had, and that was 16 years ago, and they're still shitting on him.
Yes, and it scares the shit out of them.
And misrepresenting how that happened also. That's another issue.
Say it again?
Well, they're misrepresenting what happened in 2000, right, with the election, with the number of Republicans who voted, the number of Democrats who voted for Bush.
Right.
They like to frame it about Nader as a spoiler as opposed to lots of other issues. No. Or how about Gore not fighting the recount, right?
First of all, Al Gore won the election. So now how you can blame that somehow on Ralph Nader is beyond me, because Al Gore actually won the election. We all know that now. So again, how that's somehow Ralph Nader's fault. And by the way, this is the first election, and I've mentioned this in other videos. Katie, can you remember another election, or can you remember reading about another election where the establishment, blame the voters for being wrong and not the candidate for not attracting enough voters? This is even people go, well, Al Gore and Ralph Nader. No, people got mad at Nader. Nobody got mad at the voters. Nobody blames the voters for Nixon. Nobody said you should have voted for McGovern.
That's a really important point. That's a really important point, yeah. Well, the thing is that I had this kind of coming out thing on Twitter. I mean, it's not to sound precious, but I went on this Twitter rant. Sometimes I'll go on these Twitter rants where I number them, and it's kind of embarrassing in retrospect. But basically what I was doing, and this was what Glenn Greenwald was responding to, was I was kind of I was raised by a very left family, and during Bush and during Obama, I knew that I was far to the left of a lot of my friends. And we don't even have to call it left versus liberal. We can call it like establishment versus not establishment, or neoliberal versus progressive, whatever. But there has been this punching left. And I used to kind of dismiss it like, okay, when the revolution comes, we're going to have to choose sides. But until the revolution comes, I'm fine with working with people who are a little bit to my right. There's so much that we can agree on in terms of fighting and opposing. But this election really kind of exposed the differences between us. And one of them is that I kind of always thought in the back of my mind that even people who aren't as to the left as I am, I kind of thought that
if a real viable progressive had come around, we'd all kind of rally around him, right? And I thought that, the reason that we hadn't supported a really someone way to the left of the Democrats was because there was no one around who could fill that role. Like Nader was not a galvanizing figure. He wasn't a very uniting, charismatic figure, right? So, but then what happens is you have Bernie Sanders, who is very viable, doing really well, and people still didn't support him. And it really kind of put into stark relief the difference between people who kind of talk the talk and actually want to see the world change. Like a lot of liberals that, again, they're just status quo, but they want better optics.
I couldn't agree with you more. This really has outed people like Jeremy Stahl at Slate. It's out. You know what it's done? It's outed like even Talking Points Membo. It's just weird to see these people who you thought couldn't be more lefty. They're not. They're actually corporate Democrats. Now Talking Point Memorial is spending their time shitting on Jill Stein. The same slanders that they used against Bernie Sanders, they're now using against Jill Stein. And how you could try to slander Jill Stein while supporting the most corrupt Democratic nominee in the history of our country is beyond me. Jill Stein never voted for a war.
Right. You can have, this is the thing, like first of all, the anti-vax smear was so coordinated. I mean, I don't get why people don't at least stagger it. Like, if I were working for this media team that's clearly like getting talking points from the Clinton team and David Brock, I would be like, okay, I'm going to write this hit piece. Why don't you wait till Tuesday and have it slightly different? But no, they all come out at the same time. It's so obvious they got the same memo. And the other thing that I love, so they're talking about Jill Stein being an anti-vaxxer. She hasn't said anything more vaccine doubting than Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama.
Correct.
And yeah, there's a really great article on Shatterproof that I'll email you, Jimmy, and you can tweet it out. That goes through this. But they're doing the exact same thing to Stein that they did to Sanders. And I think what they don't think anyone's going to notice, like John Aravosis the other day was tweeting about how bad Stein's running mate Baraka is, and how mean he was about Bernie Sanders. I'm like, wait. You shat on Bernie Sanders professionally for months. Like, I'm very touched that you care now about Bernie Sanders' feelings, but this is so disingenuous. And this is the other question that I genuinely have. These people who are shitting on Stein and shitting on Sanders supporters, do they actually think that they're a threat at all, or is this just sadistic?
Is it just fun? Right. Are you just, so you don't think Jill Stein is a threat, but you just want to shit on her for kicks?
Right. Which, here's what I think is so amazing about this. And I want to write another article that focuses more on this aspect of it. It was kind of like a part 2 of this one, which is that the entire framing of this election by Hillary supporters is that, Hillary's great. That's one of their arguments. But their other one really is that Donald Trump is an unprecedented fascist or neo-fascist, right? Now, if I was trying to save the world from fascism, you know what I wouldn't waste my think pieces on? Pieces about people who are not a threat to the election.
Right.
Like, that's just some self-indulgent, which is what they always call Sanders and Sanders supporters, right? That's the self-indulgent thing to do. Don't you have a war to win? Don't you have civilization to save? Don't you need to write about how horrible Trump is and how great Hillary Clinton is? Why are you wasting your words on Jill Stein and Bernie Sanders, one of whom isn't running and one of whom is a totally marginal candidate?
Exactly right. Oh, I know why. Because they're propping up the weakest candidate in fucking history.
Right. So they're just insecure about it. I just don't get it. It's weird.
Yeah.
And some people actually think that they're like, I put something about this on Facebook. I was like, okay, either Stein and Bernie are busters. Either they're a threat or they're statistically irrelevant, right? Let's say they're statistically irrelevant. Then you're just wasting your time. And not only you're being mean-spirited, but you're actually being irresponsible, because if this election is about democracy versus fascism, you should be focusing on preventing the fascists from winning, right? Not just being self-indulgent and getting your rocks off, politically and ideologically or whatever. Now, if they are a threat, let's say that there is something at stake, why on earth do you think that shaming people and calling them stupid and selfish and self-indulgent, you think that's going to prevent them from embracing the politics that they're now embracing or considering embracing? Like, if you tell me I'm an idiot for considering voting for Jill Stein or considering being Bernie or bust, you know what that'll make me do with that much more enthusiasm? Vote for Jill Stein or be Bernie or bust.
That's what did it for me. My whole point is that people go, I'm going to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton and then hold her feet to the fire. Well, if you could be a worse negotiator, I'd like to see it, because that's the same negotiation people were upset with Barack Obama about for the last 7 years. Right. You don't negotiate like that. You have no leverage after she's president. Why don't you hold her feet to the fire before you vote for her? Why don't you hold her feet to the fire now, and so she comes to your position, and now you have something to hold her feet over?
Right. That's like if I were a hostage, if I had taken hostages, right? This is the equivalent of what people are doing, right? They're like, all right, I have some hostages that I have with me, and I have a gun to their head. I really want $1,000 in an airplane, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to release the hostages, okay? But once they're in safety and you have me surrounded, make sure I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. You better give me that airplane and $1 million. That's
a great analogy. Again, I will probably steal that.
Do it. Way more fun than I did, because I just. But that would be really funny. A video series that plays out exactly what this looks like in hostage negotiation.
I agree.